Hello again, everyone, and welcome to 90s to Now. I am Jerry Strauss, and I just wanted to hop on here and give you a little preview of this week's this very special episode that we're doing. It's a little bit different because we are pulling one from the archives, a very memorable conversation that I had with a true 90s icon. You know her, you love her, you might have had a poster of her on your bedroom wall. You know her from Baywatch, you know her from Charles in Charge, and so much more. Nicole Eggert was good enough to connect with us. And this was not actually for 90s to Now. This was for a project that we had started a couple of years ago before 90s to Now. It was called Living Single, and it was about living a happy, satisfying, independent life. And Nicole, always so open, has been throughout her career and throughout her life about the ups and downs of her life. You know, she's a single mom, and instead of kind of putting out this image of being a Disney princess, which I think a lot of us would assume, uh, she'd have one of those fairy tale happily ever after stories. She's a real person with a real life. She's had her struggles, she's had her challenges, and her victories as well. And we talked about all of it. We talked about navigating happiness and all that a couple of years ago. Now, if you followed her or listened to her podcast, which is always so raw and honest and a great listen every week, you know that she is currently going through one of her big battles in life. She is going through cancer treatment after being diagnosed several months ago. And again, she's been really cool about sharing all the details with us to help inspire others uh, to toughen up and to face these challenges head on, which is what she's doing. She has a GoFundMe. There is an account that is set up for her as she faces, as you can imagine, nearly insurmountable medical bills. So her fans have an opportunity to support her in that way. You can go to GoFundMe. It's under Nicole Eggert Needs Your Help. And it's definitely something you should take a look at and check out if interested in helping support her battle as we look for her to come out better than ever on the other side of this thing. So without any further ado, again, this is a couple of years ago, but still a lot of insightfulness and deep stuff here. Great conversation with Nicole Eggert. And this is a quintessential episode, a quintessential conversation that we're going to have with somebody that we all know, somebody we all love. We're looking at her right now. She is just one of our favorites, Nicole Eggert. Welcome to the room. Welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. Of course, you guys know Nicole. I'm going to speak for myself and say I've certainly grown up watching you and some of the most popular shows of all time, Charles in Charge and Baywatch, and we've literally watched her go from child to adult, and that's part of what we're going to talk about here, because we're talking about the art of living an independent life and sort of the skills and the challenges that come with that. And what we find out is that there's lots of different scenarios that fit into this category, right? Whether it's we're out of a relationship, or we're out of a marriage, or maybe we've just been kind of on our own and being independent for our whole lives. Maybe we've lost someone in an even more tragic fashion. But there's all sorts of life situations that kind of lead us to this what do I do now kind of place. And I want to talk to you about it for two reasons. Number one, you've been so amazingly open throughout your life. I mean, through different interviews and different TV appearances, not all your movie roles and your TV roles, but just being Nicole, just being you. You've been so cool to share a lot of what's been going on in your life over the years. So it's been it's been I think helpful and inspirational and informational for people to see that over the years. But also, you've had this relationship as well, a long-term relationship with show business. Something that started for you when you were what, 4 or 5 years old. Um, at the height of fame, I can't even imagine, what it's like to be in that position and grow up in that position and then kind of deal with maybe the real world kind of entering the picture at some time later. Do you feel like that's like you grew up almost like in a cocoon, so to speak, as far as just the way that everything was go, 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 film, film, film. You were a huge star your entire time growing up.
Yeah, I think that when you're young and you're in it, you don't know any different, so everything feels normal and as it should be.
Mm,
I think that growing up, my parents were immigrants. They were we'd very small family, so we were very tight knit. They kept me very grounded, and we my dad built a house out in Orange County in Huntington Beach for us. So I also was sort of sheltered with that small, tight knit community.
okay.
And it was sort of like went to work, went to school, and went home.
Yeah.
And not until I got older did I realize, that my work was things people were watching on TV. So when I would be out in public or out anywhere else, um, I very much stayed in like a cocoon. I still, in the past, more in like my more adult years, I've been working on trying to open up and like look around me. I found I've lived a lot of my life in like a very tunnel vision,
Mm.
just like eyes on what I'm doing, what I'm focusing on, and I don't really let in a lot of the outside. So it's just interesting. I've sheltered myself in my own everyday, and my world around me was sort of very sheltered. But like I said, when you're growing up in that, that is your normal, and that is what is, quote unquote normal.
How aware were you then of just sort of the insanity going on around you and all the attention on you? I mean, you were like definitely, I'd say for a certain age group, like one of the it girls, one of the it stars out there, like the girl that everyone wanted to be and wanted to look like or wanted to date or whatever the case may be. And of course, it was before social media when we're talking about going back to the 90s. But I mean, just the hysteria around Baywatch alone, just walking into that situation and being a part of that circus, so to speak. Were you aware that there was this sort of not a cocoon that you created around you, but that the world was kind of inherently bowing down at your feet a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because you're really kind of unaware of it. At least I was until after the show, because really you spend so much time actually working.
Mm,
You're actually on set, you're actually doing PR outside of when you're not filming, you're traveling, you're doing things. So like with Charles in Charge and Who's the Boss and stuff like that, I didn't really realize until later in life when people would say, "Oh yeah," when you weren't working and you weren't so, wrapped up in the job.
right.
And then Baywatch was sort of, I went into it. It was a failing show. It had been canceled. They were
Mm,
trying to revive it and bring life back to it. It's the same thing with Charles in Charge. It was the same scenario. So I went into it, really not with high expectations. And I think that kind of when we touched foot in Europe is when I realized what a hit the show was. Because you can read all day about the numbers and the ratings and the viewers. You can read, but to feel it and to see it in real life is something completely different.
yeah.
And I think that really kind of happened in Europe because to be honest, in California and Los Angeles, people are so used to seeing other famous people. It's really no big deal, and you just go about your day, and everybody leaves you alone. It's not the same as then when you travel.
Yeah.
That's sort of when you feel it.
That makes sense. Yeah, and in California, everyone looks like like the cast of Baywatch anyway when he hit the
Yeah.
beach. So, but I mean, just kind of now again with the perspective of looking back, right? Now you've kind of looked around and you felt sort of the effect that you and the things you were involved with had on pop culture and just how big of a deal these freaking things were. Do you look back and you say, wow, that was a time of my life where maybe I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm trying to kind of create almost a metaphor between being in a relationship and kind of being in that bubble that you were, whether you knew it or not. Like, do you feel like it was a bigger life shift after, say, post Baywatch? Did you feel like maybe it was a bigger life shift that you didn't realize at the time, but now it's like, wow, now I see how different my life was back then versus, you know, how it would kind of normalize in a way at times.
Um, in all honesty, my day-to-day life doesn't really change. I live my life, it's the same all the time, whether, I'm on a show that's the number one in the world or not. So, not really. I do look back, and hence why we're making the documentary, is because to know now what technology can do and social media and the powers that it has, to
Mhm.
to look back and see the trends that we set and the popularity that we had before social media. It kind of is makes you go, wow, how did that happen? How did
Mm.
this become, such a thing when we didn't have this tool of social
Yeah.
media? So that part of it is really, interesting, and definitely ages us in the fact that, that was the normal. And, now everything is so accessible, everything is at your fingertips. So it's so different.
How
I
how
think that
different?
now trends, they come and go so much faster and it's easier. Back then, I mean, people were more choosy with what they copied and what they emulated.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Do you think your life personally, as Nicole, would have been greatly affected by social media being out there while you were living your life, or were you keeping yourself cocooned enough that it wouldn't have really affected you too much?
Um, that's really hard to say because I'm an entirely different person than I was then.
Mm.
I would think that probably not. I probably wouldn't have really been into social media very much. Um,
An
I'm
old
still not.
soul.
I'm still I'm still not really I'm savvy with it and all. It's just I don't find it all that interesting. So back then we had teen magazines and there were gossip magazines. So you had the National Enquirer,
Right.
all in your business all the time. You had Tiger Beat and Bop, and you had all of these things. So there was, that element. It just was different.
Yeah. 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 It's there's always been people out there looking to kind of blow up your life, I guess, if you're somebody who gets that kind of attention. And um
Yes,
it's
camcorders have been around for a long time.
yeah.
They've been around a lot longer than social media. So there
Oh
was
my
always that.
goodness. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I mean, we're really talking about the grander scheme here. In the grand scheme of things, we're talking about life, and we're talking about how we carry it on. And the reason that we wanted so badly to have you on this show is again because of the metaphor of how you've lived your life and the fact that you've come out and you said, hey, you've been a single mom and you've been very successfully, I think, showing how to do it, so to speak. I mean, I got to watch something I'd watched a few years ago, which was a show called Back in the Game. Alex Rodriguez was the host. You were on that show, and he took a look into your life and was working with you as you were looking to launch or maybe relaunch a food truck business. Is that something you're still involved in at all?
No, I mean, first of all, let me preface by saying it's a TV show,
Hmm.
very much produced.
Oh, yes.
I never had any intention of getting involved with a food truck ever. I had purchased one for my eldest daughter years ago, and we had fun with it, and it was a blast, and it was a success, and all of that, but never. it's not for me. It's, it definitely takes the energy of a young person like my daughter. No, not at all. That,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, that show's it's a little funny.
It was a lot funny.
Yeah.
But but it looked like fun. It looked like you were having fun in it, and the bottom line is I know that. I mean, I assume they were actually showing your real daughter and your real home, and there were aspects of your life that we were able to catch up on. And it looks like you're someone who, whether it's that or whether it's going back a few years, you had done a segment with Oprah catching up with you, that I saw a few days ago as well. And there's this through line of you kind of just welcoming the world into your world. And, this is me and I'm taking care of my kids. And you're always constantly hustling, it seems, in a good way, like involved in a bunch of different projects, or whether it's in or out of entertainment. And I think that that's something that, whether we are, again, newly living an independent life, whether we have people depending on us, or whether we're just kind of operating for ourselves or on our own, that's like a mindset that isn't always, in my mind, so easy to adopt. And I feel like that's sort of the crux of what I wanted to talk to you about, because it's something that maybe you didn't really have to deal with while you were a kid, while you were a teenager. You were busy acting, you were busy on the set. Did you feel like that was kind of a transition in life that you had to make at some point?
No, I think quite contrary to that. I think that growing up, being a working, tax-paying person,
Yeah.
um, it comes with responsibility. And, there's no sick days, and I've learned this since I was 5 years old, as we talked about. There's no sick days, and there's no days that you just don't feel like going. There's no play hooky days. There isn't that. There is, a strict schedule that
Yeah.
it has to be stuck to. So I think you grow up very quickly, or at least I did, earning quite a bit of money and learning how to invest it.
Mhm.
I got into the real estate game at 15 because I had to invest my money somewhere. And that is what interested me. And, so I think that making these decisions and being involved in the business side of things sort of instilled that in me just naturally.
Yeah. And I mean, we're saying that the work you did and the life you led helped instill that within you, but we've seen and heard many cases of people who blow their money and don't get that business sense and don't get that sense of responsibility. Um, do you think it was your upbringing? Do you think it's your personality? What like led you to that secret sauce of going down that right path?
Um, I don't know. I think it's just something maybe I'm born with, that I like to be happy. I like everything, no matter what we're doing, to be light and fun.
Mhm.
I know that this life is short, so I just really try to enjoy all the moments of it and not take things too seriously. I also like to be in control of my life and decisions. I'm very spontaneous and sort of a risk taker at the same time, but I very much, I like to be productive. I
Yeah.
think that also investing well, because I've been able to take long periods of time off to raise my girls
Yeah.
because I invested well, and that's not something just everybody can say. I worked for it. I did it. I just did it. I started very young. So for me, I was fortunate to be able to take that time off and, be with my babies. So it's, it's back and forth of like working really hard, saving, and then, living on that too.
I
And I'm
think you
not
hit.
afraid to cash in on investments. I have cashed in on properties so that I could stay an extra year or two at home, because that's what they're there for. I'm not, like they say, you can't take it with you when you're dead. So I invest money to spend the money, and and just keep going. I don't know. I really kind of like the flow, the in and out, the ebb and the weave of it. I just like that.
Yeah, and you're in control of it. You hit on something before. I think that's really so important for people to learn as quickly as possible if they are in a position to have to kind of suddenly handle everything about their lives, especially people who maybe were in a situation where their significant other or their family handled their finances before that, and now they're in the driver's seat. You need to develop that instinct because I think, again, going back to, others in your situation, I'm sure there's a lot of celebrities who've made a lot of money. There's plenty of stories where they've just let somebody else handle those decisions, and then suddenly, where's all the money? Or the money disappeared, whether rightfully, whether bad judgment, whether theft, whatever the case may be, and
Right.
suddenly the situation is out of their control. But you like to stay in control of your stuff, and therefore, that's safety.
It is. It's a safety net. I mean, I have been in a position where I relinquished some power and some control
Mhm.
before, and it has come back and bit me in the behind. And I had to pick up and sort of start over. But I think that that's the other thing as a single parent, especially women, you you find that drive, you find that power somewhere. It's a survival not only for yourself but for your children, and I think that it's sort of that mama bear kicks in and you make things happen. You just do. And yes, it's very important to always be in control of your own things. I've never lived off somebody else providing for me at all, ever. um,
Mm.
since 5 years old. I mean, obviously, my parents provided for me when I was a baby, but since then, nobody ever. And it's not like uh, I wouldn't welcome any sort of partnership or anything like that. It's just that I don't need that, and so to be in a vulnerable situation like that, that would really be sort of terrifying for me because you feel like you're not contributing, A, and then B, if something happens and the rug is pulled from underneath you, what then?
Yeah.
That all seems, scary. And yes, we see that around us all the time. And, it's not the boat I want to be in.
No, no, and, you hit on parental instincts, the maternal instincts that you have, but just, I mean, I feel like, and I'm still kind of exploring this in my own mind, I almost feel like there's something unlocked in all of us when we become parents, whether you're single or not. There's just this, there's this side of you that it's almost like the best, strongest side of you that is unleashed the second that you become a parent. And, like, do you feel the same way? Because I know that you've got, your based on my math, your older child would be what? In their 20s at this point, right? Like, you've been.
24. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, thinking back to when you first went from non-parent to mom, was that a big shift mentally as far as the old you versus a newer version of you?
Yeah, I think that I suddenly like found my voice too in a weird way because I wasn't only speaking up for myself anymore. I was speaking up for this person that I love so deeply. It changes. You sort of shift into a different role, right? You're not. It's not just about you anymore, or at all.
Right.
And it for me, it made me stronger. It made me, like an advocate for her and for us, and yeah, I think a strength. It just gave me a strength that I didn't really have before because before I'd be like, oh, well, But then when it's like for your child and you see the big picture, everything sort of shifts and changes.
Yeah. What are some things that you felt were worth fighting for at that point that maybe hadn't been before?
Well, I think that, I was also raised in a time where in the industry, you always just said yes and everybody got along great. And
Mm.
whether you hated each other or not, you were you were coached, to have certain things that you said. And so everything was always shiny and pretty and perfect. And I think that it really kind of let me get in tune with like what's real, and what are we just saying here. And it definitely gave me a voice, and like the ability to say no. I think that was one of the best things, lessons in life, was to be able to say no because you didn't want to, or it didn't work for you. Where before everything was yes, 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 yes. Now you can say no. You can stand up for and have an opinion because it wasn't just about you. And I don't know. There's something was really freeing for me in that, and really amazing.
You know what I think the secret is? I think in my eyes, beyond everything else, beyond the maturity, beyond the added responsibility, it's the fatigue, it's the sleepiness, because you're like, just like F off. Like to me, I know as a parent, like I got that ability. I got an ability to nap, first of all, which I never had before. But I also had the ability to get like grumpy enough to just be like, go to hell. There's only so much time in the day, so many things you can do for other people in this world in a given day or week or month. And you go from being someone who has an unlimited amount of bandwidth and time to do things that people ask, to just having a limit and having a lack of patience. And that's kind of a good thing. It's like a self-preservation tactic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of the ability to pick your battles,
Mhm.
and prioritize of what is important in the day. Yes, because you only have so many hours. And yeah, somebody else is taking up a lot of those hours. So you definitely have to prioritize.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the shift to becoming a parent for you and going into that phase of your life. You were already very much programmed to be in charge of a household, to handle, everything, things that people don't even think of. I mean, I'm talking about, just the act of paying bills, or cooking a meal, which are things that many of us, in whatever relationships or dynamics we live in, we just don't do until we have to do it. um Older relatives, I've got a situation in my family where somebody passed away, and we realized that their spouse never learned how to use the oven or the dishwasher or the washing machine. And sometimes it's practical skills like that. Sometimes it's broader things. But, while you were definitely someone who was well prepared for this type of thing, what would your advice be to somebody who isn't, who, whether, they're newly divorced or newly widowed, or just, moving out from an apartment with a roommate, or whatever the case may be, they're going to start this new period of life where they're doing it all on their own way. What's the mental step to getting where they need to be?
Well, running a household, and I have to give it to all the house moms out there that do take care of it as their full-time job. It can be overwhelming, but at the same time it's not. It's simple steps, and you can do it. You just have to learn how to do it. I happen to be one of those people that I like to know how to do things. Like, I want to do them myself. I don't
Mhm.
want somebody else to do my laundry. I want to do my own. um, and there is a long period of time in my life that I do look back and I go, did I ever like cook a meal? Before my first daughter, I was like, did I ever cook? Where did I eat? What was I eating? you know um, just there's things like that. So it was just, it's like, there were housekeepers, and I didn't have to worry as much of like the day-to-day stuff. I took care of, yes, the bills, remodeling, buying, selling, and doing all of that.
Mm.
But then after you have a child, and especially with palates like mine, that I would go broke trying to feed them out all the time. So I started learning how to cook. And you just do it. You just roll up your sleeves and you do it. But you have to want to, and you can't be scared. These are things that everybody can do. This isn't, this isn't a brain surgery situation. It's, pressing buttons and just doing it and not being afraid. It's having the faith in yourself and in life, and just going for it and just doing it because it has to be done.
Yeah.
And it's really not that bad.
And there's a YouTube video to teach you how to do anything. So you're
Right.
covered.
There's a how-to on everything. That's right.
Well, we're always curious, in addition to going back and enjoying all the things that you've done, we're kind of always curious as fans of yours, what you're doing next. And we know that next year you've got something really big in the works. You're working on, I think you mentioned it before, a documentary project centered around Baywatch. Could you tell us more about what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's called Baywatch: The American Dream, and it really sort of started as talking about what was going on during that time that the show became such a hit, the escapism of it all, and how it set so many trends before social media. And it's definitely, as a documentary does, which is so different than anything I've done before and scripted projects, it's evolved, and meeting up and catching up with everybody and hearing their stories and seeing where they're at now and how everything affected their life. Wow. It's definitely evolved into a few different things along the way, but it's really kind of a way you've never seen Baywatch before. You're going to be able to see and meet the characters in their real form and who they really are at the core, not these glossed over interviews with the same 10 questions and the same stock photographs and all that. It's going to be very different, and a lot of the stuff that we shot really kind of looks like what Baywatch would look like if it were shot today. We've done a lot of water work and beach work, and it's beautiful, and it's really heartwarming. It's really nice to get to know these people on a deeper level than what you just saw on the screen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's coming 2023 is the target release for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, look for it on your streaming service.
Absolutely. And so where can we keep up with it? Where can we keep up with you? I know you don't love social media, but do you want us there?
Instagram. I do check my Instagram, which is _Nicole_Eggert, and it's obviously verified. So I do update there, and Facebook. I try to stay away from Twitter at all costs these days. And we have an Instagram for Baywatch: The American Dream.
Okay.
The director sort of takes things on and off of there. He shares some things and then pulls it off. So it's, but you definitely will get updates about the project there. And yeah, my social media, I'll keep everybody updated.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be looking for it. We'll be enjoying this. Hopefully those of you who check this out are enjoying this, and will be doing so on a repeated basis, sharing it with all your friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's been so great to talk to you. It's been it's been really awesome. And we thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It was nice talking to you too.
You too. And thank you guys once again for joining us, sharing, subscribing, all the things you're supposed to be doing on this thing. Please do those things. Thank you guys for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.